I might see on my desk here, there's a number of things. So today's topic is about basic hybridizing. So I'm trying to cover at least four main topics. Oh, sorry, five main topics. The first one being tools, which is what you can see, and this next part is I think what most people interested is how do you know which plants to use, and the next one is once you pick your plants, how are you going to pollinate it, and how do you then, what do you do after you do pollination, and then when the seed pod is ready, what do you do with it? So planting it and then growing it, and watching the result, which is the fun bit. All right, so we start from there, which is the tools. Although I had a set of tools here, it doesn't mean that you don't have any. If you miss any of these, you can't do it. So you just improvise. All right. Now the first one is this wearable. It has a magnifying glass. All right. I normally don't use that one, and also it has a line. The reason I prefer a wearable rather than a side table is that it's a lot more flexible, and the lights tend to shine at the point where your head is turning as opposed to a standing lamp. Alright. You can buy this reasonably cheap price from eBay. It doesn't have to be one of those clinical expensive cost you a few fortune type of thing. This is reasonably priced, and it lasts very long. So I've been using this for a while already, and it keeps your hands free, which is one thing you need. You need two hands when you do pollination. Okay, so the first thing, if you don't have that, that's fine. If you can see through reasonably well, that's fine too. It's not a essential item, but my eyesight is failing and all sorts of things, so that becomes really handy for me. The next part is you're wondering why I need a toothbrush. So it's mainly to use the vibration. All right. Now, one other thing about African violet is the pollen doesn't disperse by itself, so self pollination is very rare in African violet. Only on very rare occasion, self-pollination will occur. In the species, there's only one species that does that, which is Sumensis. The rest doesn't self-pollinate. In hybrid, seldom happen unless you have trips running around. That's one of the potential where it triggers the pollens. So in lack of it doing its pollen dispersion, which is good in a sense you control how to pollinate it, you need something that will vibrate, and an old vibrating toothbrush is one of the best things to use. Alright, so I'll show you how to do that later on. And brush for picking up the pollen, you want to find a brush that is fine and it's not white. Remember, the pollen is almost white in color. If you have a white brush, you can see your pollen, so you don't know whether there's pollen dips into the tips of your brush or not. So something dark in color will easily show you the pollen. Again, I'll show you later on. Again, a plastic sheet, whether it's a black sheet. Again, because the pollen, this is to collect the pollen. So I'll show you that later on again. So because pollen smart, you want something dark in color. So I happen to have plastic sheets, so that's very handy for me. And what else? Yeah, so that's become very handy for me. I also use a skewer. Again, I'll show you why I need a skewer later on. And sharp, small pointed scissor to cut the pollen sac. That's what I do as well. And something to wash. I use methylated spirit. Okay, something to wash your scissor and your brush after use. All right, so you don't want just to dust it off, because there will be minute pollen in there. So then you use on another plant, then you're cross-pollinating. You really don't know which one you are actually the pollen is coming from. So when you do pollination, make sure you keep yourself very, very clean. There's no heavy draft air fan blowing, and you don't breathe heavily. That's the other thing. Okay, so that's some of the basic thing that I think I covered it all. And good luck. All right, we'll come back to using these tools where I demonstrate some pollination for you. Okay.
While Patrick's doing this, everybody, we've had a few questions already come through, but if you've got questions, just please type it in, and I'll be asking Patrick your questions for the answers while he's doing his presentation.
Okay, this is a core part of pollination. So the question that most people ask is, which plant do I use? That's a really difficult question to answer. One of the things you need to try to understand is, what are you trying to get out of the hybridizing? Are you trying to get frill flowers? Are you trying to get thumbprints in the flowers? Are you trying to get a variegated leaves, or are you trying to get a semi-miniature plant? Are you trying to get a standard with ruffled leaves? So all those are basic questions that you need to try to aim at as well. Again, don't try to get all the combination that I just tell you. All right, it is going to be difficult to be able to achieve that in the first pollination. Sometimes you need to take a few pollinations. So you try to get a characteristic to one offspring, and then pollinate the offspring with another characteristic to build the complexity of the future of offspring. So it could be multiple pollination in that sense, which means multiple years of generation before you reach the ultimate goal. All right? So depending on how complex you want it to be. And pollination, because it's about genetics. Genetics is about probability. So it's not even though it's a dominant, this is dominant gene, you're gonna get it. All right, it's all about probability. You're more likely to get it, but there's never 100% guarantee. And the other thing we need to try to understand, which this is the part that you'll be lacking for most people as well. That is, you don't know the parentage. Without knowing the parentage is a lot of guessing game. You only know, yes, this plant currently is pink, but what is its parentage? Because the parentage will carry some genes that is hidden by the current offsprings. So by crossing it with something else, it will give you surprises. All right, it bounds to give you surprises, and that's really good. That's the interesting part about hybridizing, and trying to get that parentage information is really difficult, because hybridizer don't release that information. There's no register of that.
Patrick, first question, just before you go into this, Pamela Burke has sent through a question, and that is there a better time of the year to try to hybridize?
To me, as long as the flowers continue to open and the plants continue to grow, then you can hybridize. If your environment allows plants to continue to grow throughout the year and flower throughout the year, hybridize it. But if your environment is very cold during winter, and obviously your plant will stop growing, and you're less likely going to get flower, then you can't hybridize that. All right? So that's it's a similar way during when you are growing your plants. All right, all depends on the temperature in your environment. All right? And I'll touch a bit more about the subject a bit later on. Okay, so picking your plants, like this one. This is one of my seedlings. So see, first of all, you want, once you factor in what you want out of it, then you take the next step. So I'll tell you my reason of this one is a cross between snow leopard and rainbow weeping crown. Snow leopard is I think it's semi-miniature. It's a white frill flowers. Rainbow weeping crown has a bit of fantasy. It's a trailer. I think it's a standard trailer. I can't remember on top of my head. The reason I want this cross is I want that frill flowers from the snow leopard. But snow leopard is standard. So one of the questions asked was, can you cross a standard or a semi with a terror and vice versa? The answer is yes. All right. You can cross any type with any type. The only issue with crossing any type, like a trailer with a standard, like when I say trailer, it could be a standard trailer, semi-miniature trailer, especially if you cross a smaller type of trailer with a standard, you might get offsprings that are standard, but it's not quite a standard size, so you get that odd size outcome sometimes. Right? So just beware of that. Now again, the basic gene dominance for African violet is that trailer is a recessive gene. Recessive means that you need both parents, the seed parents and the pollen parent, to be the trailer, to get a trailer seedling. So if you cross, however, if you cross especially if you pollinate a non-trailer with a trailer, you are more likely to get standard, all right? Non-trailer, should I say? So because the non-trailer is the dominant gene.
So all trailers are recessive, Patrick?
Yeah. All trailer genes are recessive. That doesn't mean that when you cross a dominant plant with the dominant gene, you won't get the recessive. Again, the ancestry of the parents can change that picture, because a standard might carry a trailing genes. So if you cross a trailer with that, you get a percentage of trailers. So that's why, even though I just crossed this one with a trailer with a semi-mini, do I get a trailer? This doesn't look like a trailer to me. This looks like I don't know what this looks like, to be honest. I have to grow this a bit further to understand it. It's somewhere between a semi-mini and possibly a very, very tiny standard. That's what I'm saying. When you cross type, you have this boundary issue in terms of how you determine. But it's too early to tell. You just have to keep on growing it and see how it grows. So I managed to get from that cross. I don't get the frill. I can't remember what the frill is in terms of the dominance of the genes. Okay, I'll post URL to Jeff Smith. Jeff Smith has a table, or it's based on the Ancestry project. It will tells you some of the dominancy between flower type, colors, and the leaf types. So those are things. So you need to understand some of that basic to give you some guidance. Otherwise, you can always just pollinate it just for the fun of it. Okay, but that table will give you some guideline. So that's about flowers. The next one you want to think about is your leaf. Do you want variegated leaves, Do you want non-variegated leaves, or do you want what other leaf? There's a number of other leaf type. You want mosaic leaves, or you want longifolias, or the long leaves, or you want clackamas leaf. Most leaf types are what we call maternal inheritance, which means that if you want that leaf type, your seed parent must have that leaf type, especially with crown and edge variegation, Tommy-Lou variegation, which is edge variegation. Your seed parent must have that leaf type. So if you use a plain leaf, you're not going to get that variegation. So you must use a variegated leaf for that. For mosaic is not really maternal. Mosaic is actually genetic trait, and it's a recessive gene. So you have to use the you have to use, what was that? Both your parent has to have mosaic. Is what I'm saying, to get the mosaic leaf.
Can you cross chimera?
You can, but you're not going to get chimera.
No.
Chimera is beyond any one house being produced. When you cross chimera, I tried cross chimera before. Your offspring will not be chimera. You must really get the color of the normal white stripe, or the color of the chimera. If it's a white stripe on a pink base, then you get a pink out of it. What else? Clackamas leaf is, for those who doesn't know clackamas leaf, the vein looks like pineapple. Your leaves look like have that pineapple vein. So you see the veining, instead of going to the side, the veins just go to the top. All right. Clackamas is a genetic trait, so you don't have to have the seed parent to be clackamas leaf to get clackamas, and it's a dominant trait as well. All right. So this one I actually pollinate with. So before I go pollinate, the next thing, once you pick all that, have some of that idea in mind, you pick the plants. Okay, the first plant that you have to pick, well, the best one is to look at your seed parent first. Right? For a plant to be qualified as seed parent, obviously you must have a good stigma. Alright, so I'm not sure. Yeah, there's that point there. I hope people can see that little white.
Yes, Patrick.
Yeah.
Yes, you can.
Yeah. So you must have a good stigma that you can put the pollen on. Alright.
Patrick, how do you know when that stigma is ready? How do you know?
So you normally pollinate a couple days after the flower is fully open.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you do maybe every other day you do a pollination, and you dust it once every other day for maybe 3 times if you really very precious about that pollination. For me, I don't.
Does it change colour, or does it change any appearance?
It will eventually. So when you pollinate that, the first step is, don't just pollinate one flower. If you got your bloom stalk like that and you got multiple flowers, pollinate as many of them as possible. The idea is that the flower will eventually wither, and it will die off. And the idea is to give signal to the plant something is forming, so preventing it from dying off. Alright. So if you just pollinate one and the other flowers die off, it might signal the bloom stalk to die off. So you pollinate multiple, and some will take and some won't take. So at least you have maybe 2 of them takes, and then the theory is that it's less likely signaling the bloom stalk to die off, because the seed pod will take at least 3 months to be ready. Normal flower won't last for 3 months. So once you pollinate it, normally it takes about up to, for me, I think my guess is that I don't actually calculate it, but it normally takes you about a month before you can see a seed pod forming. And then you just leave it, you don't do anything to it, and you see, and you gradually the seed pod will form. Alright, so I'll show you how to do the collect the pollen. So that's picking the, sorry, I didn't finish that. That is picking the seed parent. Now it's hard to get a double, especially double plus, to be a seed parent, because most double or double plus, the stigma has either deform or disappear, and they is used to generate new petals. So it's deformed into petals, so they're no longer of what we call fertile flowers anymore. So it's essentially the end of the line. So that's part of the problem of taking hybridizing to the next step. Sometimes you talk, oh, the next offspring I'll pollinate with something, but then it comes out to be a double plus, and it loses the stigma, and that's the end of your line. All right.
Patrick, with regards to your seed parent, and each of those flowers has a stigma, have you noticed in your time of pollination, have you noticed that there is better, like when the flower has first opened, do you get a better chance of it taken, or maybe a day or two? Is there, you just said like do every flower on the plant, but is there an optimum time? As in,
well, the optimum time is a couple of days after the flower is fully open.
yeah, that's what you said
So
before.
so
Yep.
then you just have to go. If the other hasn't opened, you just wait till they open and then
There you
pollinate.
go.
You know.
Yep.
So you just go through so most of the time in a bloom stalk you can't pollinate all the flower at the same time.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
You take a couple of days to a few days to possibly a week or more to finish all the pollination. So you just go through that. So once you pollinate it, and if once it's and if the stigma turns slightly brown, especially at the tip, that's where you can't pollinate anymore. All right. So you can see that there's a bit of a browning effect, or the stigma bends slightly, then you know that that's the time where you can try to pollinate it. I won't say stop. I sometimes still do that, but it's unlikely to take at that point in
Right,
time.
sure.
It's already all right. So that's the seed parent. For the pollen parent, as I say, you need to pick a flower that's that has pollen. Again, your double and double plus, you might have no pollen sac at all, because the anthers is used to generate into petals, convert into petals to get that double plus effect. So, like you look at Irish flirts, you can't see any pollen sac. Some of those double flowers, especially complex double flowers, you can't see any pollen sac for that reason. And sometimes you can see the pollen sac attached to a petals because of that deformation, that converting the pollen sac statement into a flower petals. Alright? So, and sometimes it might show you a stigma, but it can be infertile. So that's one of the problems. So this is just for demonstration purposes. This is a Chimera glitter surprise. Yesterday I cut off a lot of the flowers. So for purpose today. So if I can find it. So this is the flower being dried up a bit.
Patrick, we've got a question that has come in from some Rita.
Yeah.
I'm just going to read it out as she's written it. Do you need to take off the pollen of the flowers that are being pollinated to prevent self-pollination?
No, you don't. You don't. You don't need to do that because, as I said earlier on, it's very rare that there is self-pollination in African violet. Unless you got trips jumping around, tripping it, just unlikely that's gonna happen. All right, and it's dangerous trying to trim it off and things like that. You might accidentally cutting the stigma off. I've done that before many of times. Especially when you groom it so after you pollinate it. There are many times I pull a blown stalk thinking that it's not the one, and guess what? At the end, there's a half immature seed pod in there. So those are things that you try not to do when you do hybridizing. Sorry, I talk and not showing you this. So I took my plastic sheets and I folded it, alright, so like into a pocket like that. And the reason I do that is that after I use this, I'll show you when the pollen there is. This is the next. Someone, I think Susan asked a question of how do you store it. So this is where it goes leaves in, all right. And then I label a very tiny pocket, plastic bag, should I say? I put a label in there. Greater surprise today is that. And then just put it in there and seal it up, and I put in a plastic container.
Now you're going to put that in a plastic container, Patrick.
Yeah.
Are you going to store that in the refrigerator?
Yeah.
Or can you restore it in the freezer?
No, I can't answer that question because I don't know.
Right. And if you do store it in the refrigerator, Patrick, how long is it viable?
Good question. Again, a question I cannot answer.
Okay.
So what I do, I store mine for quite some time, like more than a year, and it's still usable. And I've seen people in the hybridizing community, they store it for multiple years and it's still viable. So you store in the fridge. I normally store somewhere around the vegetable compartment, just above there, that area. So keep it cool, but not freezing is what I've advised. And it will last a long time in those things. So that's pollen storage, and it's good to store your pollen because when you got a stigma ready, you really want a pollen, and you can't wait for the flowers to open. It'll be too late. So let me just demonstrate this. So this is the greater surprise flowers that I took off yesterday. Now, for African violet, you want a slightly old flower to extract the pollen, but you want a young flower to receive the pollen. Okay.
So just before you go further with that,
Yeah.
when you say the pollen flower,
Yeah.
are you looking for a flower that's just starting to turn?
It can be flowers that has dry up too.
Is that right?
I've used it before as
Okay.
well. So, but not a flower that just open.
Yes.
Okay. Avoid those unless you're desperate, which I do sometimes too.
Yep.
All right. I took that yesterday. This is glitter surprise, as I say. Glitter is a dominant trait, so I'm trying to get it into those plants that I show you. My seedling. I'm also trying to get it into a trailer. This is Ellen Fallen Angel, which has longifolia leaves. Okay. So see whether I can, because this is white, I'm most likely to get a pink because pink is dominant to white. White is the least dominant color. People call it as a mass rather than a color. So I'm likely to get a white offspring as well as pink offspring, and if I can get glitters into it, it would be wonderful. And longifolial leaves, variegated. So this is my seed parent as well. So you can see the stigma in there. Hopefully, it's really hard to see because the stigma is also white. So this is what I do. So let's see what I can bring it slightly closer to the camera. Okay, hopefully that's close enough. So use this is a you see with standard is actually quite good. If you try to extract pollen from trailer, it's really a pain because they don't have a lot of pollen and their pollen sacs are really tiny. Standard is really good. So this is where you got to be careful with pollen spill, because you don't want it to spill into other plants and things like that, and you don't know where the pollens come from. So with standard, I tend not to do this step, but sometimes still do, just to extract the maximum amount of pollen. That is to break the pollen sac. So I use my skewer is purely to prevent the pollen sac from moving around. Okay.
Are you just going to cut these in half, are you?
Yeah, I'm just going to cut it. It doesn't have to be in half. Just break it. You know? So now you got to wash this because you don't want to. I throw this away.
So you would wash that now in methylated spirits.
Yeah. So that when you use the next time for something else, you don't forget about it. So that's contaminated as far as I'm concerned. All right. So then you fold back up carefully. This is where things can jump around. For some reason, they have a mind of their own sometimes. If you find your precious pollen sac jumping,
you don't want to sneeze at this stage,
yeah,
do you?
you do not want to sneeze at this stage. So this is where your toothbrush comes into play. So you close it all up, you turn your toothbrush on, you tap it to the bottom. You just let it vibrate for a few seconds, and then take it away, turn it off, and then you open it up. And this is your precious pollen.
Oh, look at that, Patrick. You can see it. It's just so fine, isn't it? It's like a dust.
Alright, so I'm not sure people can see you very well.
Yeah, that's good there, Patrick.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's less than what I expected. Just now I saw the pollen spill. I thought there's a lot more pollen.
So you're going to cut another one now?
Yeah, I'll just cut another one. Just get a little bit more pollen. Just see.
I threw it away.
It's alright. Okay, a fresh one.
So here you go. You're cutting it again.
Yeah.
And basically you're just cutting it in half just to expose the pollen.
Yeah.
Yep. That plastic that you're using the pollen on, Patrick, where did you get this plastic from?
Yeah, this is a long time ago. We have a business and we use had black plastic show bag.
Yes.
So we've kept that bunch of black plastic show bag, which is now useful for me.
Well, you can see now why you use the colour black.
Yeah.
And why it's so shiny, etc., for it to be able to.
Yeah. So, as I say, use a dark color if you can't find black. It doesn't have to be plastic. It can be paper. But I'm not sure where you can find black paper.
So that's just buzzing against the plastic at the
Yeah,
moment
yeah.
and vibrating that pollen out of the capsules.
Yep. So,
So to get a good pollination, to get the good, see, there's more there, isn't there?
yeah. So you can see a lot more.
Just take it up high to the camera there.
Yep.
Yeah, that's it, Patrick. Now you're cooking.
Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Hopefully you guys can see that. So this is your pollen. Sometimes, unfortunately, just because you have pollen, say, doesn't mean 100% you have pollen. Sometimes you got very minuscule amount of pollen, and even then I encourage you to try it, because all you need is one tiny little pollen.
We do have a question that's come through from Pamela Burke,
Yeah.
tongue in cheek, of course. Should I use a mortar and pestle? Good on you, Pamela.
I don't know. I'm not sure whether they will damage the pollen or not. I suggest not to use more than pestle.
I'm about to fall off my chair, everybody.
Good one.
Now, this brush now
Yeah.
that you're about to use,
Yep.
that's been previously dipped and
Yep.
sterilised.
Yes.
And what are you going to do with your label there? I see
Okay.
you got a
So
label.
the next step before I pollinate is do your labeling. Okay. I'll use this one. No, sorry. Use this more obvious one, because the one got lots of codes because it's my own cross. Now there is a standard for labeling your pollination. Alright? So your seed parent name always come first, and you put a cross, whether it's big cross or small case cross, doesn't matter. And then comes the name of the pollen parents. So when people look at this label, they know that Allen's Fallen Angel is the seed parent, and Greater Surprise is the pollen parent. Alright, so that is the standard. So what I do is, before I pollinate it, I make sure the flower is labeled. I like to label it before I pollinate, because my hand shakes so much. I don't want to shake the precious pollen of the flower after pollination. Sometimes you break the flowers accidentally when you put label on.
So you just take off the ends.
And this is what my type of label. Again, labeling, use whatever label you use. This is just my type of label. Move this carefully away. So okay.
And that just sits nice and loosely, Patrick.
Yeah, that's just
That's all you need. Yep.
Yep. So you give me a date. Date is very important. Alright. So you know this is end of July, so August, September, October. End of October is where, if the seed pod ripen just after that, then you are likely to get a good seed pod. If the seed pod ripen before that, if it's close to 3 months, you still have a chance. But if the seed pod somehow die off, especially the bloom stalk, you look at the bloom stalk, the bloom stalk has to turn brown, the seed pod has to turn really dried up. Right? If that happens within the 3 months, there's a chance that your seed pod has, your plant has aborted the seed pod. All right. But I suggest, don't throw it away. Open it up and see what it looks like. Okay, I'll show you that later, a bit later on. So as you can see, there's only one flower currently open. In fact, it's not quite fully open yet, so it's a little bit early. But sometimes I prefer to be early than too late. Okay.
If you go and put pollen onto a flower, Patrick,
Yep.
Is there a lifespan that that pollen has? If you did it early like you are now,
Yeah.
can that pollen can it just stay there until
Uh,
it becomes what's known as ripe?
I don't know. That's a question again. I can't answer.
Okay.
What I do is I'll do if I know I'm early,
Mm-hmm.
I'll do a few pollination.
Right, you are. So you do that on a daily basis?
Again, when I remember.
Okay, I'll remind you.
So this is going to be very hard to see. So you just have to bear with me because it's white on white. So I can see the stigma is somewhere there. Alright. So what I do is I dip my brush and just swipe a few pollen dust so you can see. I don't know whether you can see anything at the end. Can you see anything in the white tip?
Bring it up further to the camera. Can you?
It's too.
Well, is it too much?
Yeah.
We can see that little bit of white
Yeah,
on the end there.
that's the pollen.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's all you need, and you just need to dust it at the end there. Alright. So do a few dusting. Don't be cheap with your pollen. Okay. And that's it. The flower is pollinated from that sense. Okay.
Patrick, just a question that I've got.
Yeah.
Just say you've got 2 or 3 flowers on one stalk. Would you just do the one flower?
No, you do multiple
You
flowers.
do all, even though they're on the one stalk?
Yep.
Okay.
So let me do my seedling, which is what I want to do. This might be slightly easier to see. I'll pick a bloom stalk. I think I'll pick this one. This one looks good. Let me put my label on. Again, the label, the seed parent, which is my seedling, and the pollen parent. Okay, and a date. So again, bear with me while I get the label on. So this seedling hasn't been proven to generate seed pod yet, so it will be interesting whether it will or not.
Patrick, we've got another question that's come in from Jackie, and I'm just going to read it out as Jackie wrote it. Is it better to do crosses when the temperatures are moderate, i.e. when plants are not stressed, and it is better done on days of high humidity? That was her question.
Yeah. Okay, good question. You always need to pick a healthy plant. Okay, if your plants are not healthy, do not use it for pollination. You're very likely getting the seed pod aborted in the middle of it if your plants got problem. Alright. So once you pollinate it, we'll go to talk a bit more later on. You need to look after the plant. Alright. So don't pollinate a plant if the plant is not well. If your plant continue to flower active, you can pollinate regardless of outside whether is winter or not. Obviously, your environment where the plant lives is conducive to growth. If it's conducive to growth, you can continue to pollinate it.
If you've got a seed plant, Patrick,
Yeah.
and you've pollinated the whole plant,
Yeah.
and then it continues to send up new flowers, would you take those new flowers off, the ones that you haven't pollinated, the new ones? Would you do that?
Depends what you want to do. If you want to encourage a plant to hold the seed pod, I will cut the flower off. If you so that you can focus all the energy for the seed pod, you don't want to pollinate every single bloom stalk because that can be detrimental to the plant.
What, overbearing on the plant?
It can be
Right.
overbearing on the plant, unless sometimes I do that, so I'm guilty of that. It's a very special plants with quite a number of flowers, and you want to try many different things with it. That's why I got labels on bloom stalks. So I got one here, I got another one here. I think this is the second one. The other ones I use it as this one. I use it as a pollen parent as well. So because I like the slightly frill with nice fantasy patches on it. So this one, I just put the label on. Okay, I'm sure you can see. You can see the stigma much better on this one. Okay, but
Yes, you can, Patrick.
yeah.
Yep.
So let me see whether I can set this down properly. Okay, again you dip on it. Pollinate.
Yeah, it's just in focus.
Yep.
So just on the tip of that stigma.
Yep.
Just on the tip, yes?
That's the tip we do. Just give it a little brush. And this one as well. So be a little bit more gentle. This is standing up doing this, which is not a very comfortable position.
And I'm sitting down, sorry.
Now, I did answer one part of that question, which is humidity. Okay.
This is the one from Jackie's question,
Yeah.
Patrick.
So humidity is important, and it sometimes puzzles me. All right, some plants don't have that fussy requirement, and maybe because my environment is quite humid, so my environment is about, I think it's currently about 60% humidity, and sometimes I do have a humidity chamber, which is just my shell with plastic bag around it. So what I was told is that humidity will allow the pollination to take place much easier, and you also encourage to generate more seeds. But there's always a but, especially if you use a humidity chamber like I do. And as I say, I don't use that all the time. Some plants is outside, sometimes it's inside. I don't know why. Sometimes I just run out of space, so I just pollinate things outside. When I say outside, it's still in my plant room, not outdoor. Okay. If you use humidity chamber, just be careful because the pollen sac can get moldy. Too much humid, it can get moldy, and then it will damage the stigma. So just be careful with that.
That makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Because you just have to monitor your humidity. Don't be too high. Keep it around not more than 70-75%. Anything higher than that, you're likely to get mold developing on the pollen sac or the seed parent that you just pollinated, and then you just damage the whole thing. Okay. So this is pollinated, and the next thing you do is put it away. Don't touch it. Don't try to. Well, you can take it back again and pollinate the next day again. I encourage you to do that. And then you just all you can do now is sit and watch. All right, there's nothing else you can do about it. And as long as you have label, everything is properly labeled. So I'll put this away.
While you're putting that away, Patrick, we've got a couple more questions here. I think one of these you've actually partially answered anyway.
Yeah.
But our lovely Jennifer Turner
Yeah.
has put in, for a fully grown plant, how many pollinated flowers on a plant would be appropriate?
I don't know about.
Is there a number?
I don't think there's a number. Again, just be conscious of not too many because it takes a lot of energy to generate seeds. So try not to do too many, and just focus on a few and let the seed pod grow because that takes up a lot of energy.
And another question too from Pamela. Are Ukrainian AVs easy to propagate with, say, a standard Aussie AV? Have you ever done that?
Yes, I use La Anachat pollen before. I use DS propagated pollen before. They're all usable as long as it has a stigma, as long as it has a pollen sac, you can use them. It doesn't matter where it comes from. So that's my experience so far. So
Thank you.
okay, so that's how I just now put into my container in the fridge for use. Now when just to finish off, when take it out because it's cold, I use the bag and rub it against my body to warm it up a bit. Okay, before I use it again.
After you've taken it out of the
Fridge,
refrigeration, you basically want it back to about room temperature.
Yeah.
And just maybe just holding it close to your body for a short period of time will do that.
I'll just do a quick rub on my shirt or something like just generate a bit of heat.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all I do. Okay.
Keep up with the questions, everybody. If anybody else has got questions, no matter what it is, we're here. Patrick's here to answer it for you.
Okay. All right.
Oh, here we go. Now the big guns.
This is the plant I showed you before on the invitation panel. You can see the seed pod.
Just bring it up closer there. That's it. That's it.
So this was pollinated
On what date there, Patrick?
on the 18th of June. So it's about 2 weeks.
That's come up.
a week.
That's come up very well.
A month,
hasn't it?
more than a month. Sorry, more than a month. So today is the 23rd. So it's more than a month. So this is coming up very well. Now this one didn't take.
How do you know when it hasn't taken? You can show that there,
Yeah.
Patrick.
Yeah, there's no seed pod at all.
Yep, and it's quite brown there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yep.
So, because I was looking at the flower for too long, instead of doing something about it, I knew that when I pollinated, you can see that the stigma is quite brown now. So
Needs to go into the vision. That's it. Yep.
yeah, so it's quite brown. So I suppose you can see the bloom stalk is still very healthy, so it's carrying very well at this point in time. So you just need to look after the plant at this point. It's critical not to let it dry off, because if the plant under stress, the first thing it will do, it will abort the seed pod.
Would you that particular one here, what my finger's on now,
Yeah.
that did not take, would it be advisable to take that off?
No.
For
no,
what reason?
Do not cut off any flowers.
This is good at learning here.
The minute you cut it off, it can signal the plant that the bloom stalk is dying, and the whole bloom stalk will die off.
That's
Okay.
marvelous. Thank you.
So don't touch it. Don't do anything to it. Leave it as it is. Unless you create some problem like mold growing and things like that. But try not to do too much to it. So the whole idea is do not disturb the plant at this stage. Try not to report your plant at this stage either. You can groom the leaf if you want to be careful. Sorry, you can groom the leaf if you want, but be careful around the bloom stalks. Okay, don't try to pull it off and then pull the wrong leaf with the bloom stalk with it as well, and then you'll be screaming.
Yeah.
Okay, I've done that a few times, to be honest.
Yeah, I heard you from Gembrook. Yep. Okay.
All right. So this is the Alps, which I cross it with featherwood. Featherwood is a chimera. It's actually from Bev. Sorry, Bev. So I don't expect a chimera. It's just this plant was looking at me very tempt me so much because it was sitting right in front of my chair in my desk. So I just have to pollinate with something. So I don't expect the outcome of a chimera.
We have a question here from our Susan Gaskell.
Yep.
Do you have an ultimate plant that you would like to hybridise? If so, what would it be? That's basically your wish list.
Oh, my wish list is as long as anything. It's really hard to say. Okay. I like to have a trailer that is double plus with lots of frills, with green edges, with fantasy and streak and point fantasy with blue and pink fantasy. I go I'll be here for the next 10 years to generate that flower, that plant.
And just one more quick question while,
Yeah.
while you're going on from our Sue Hodges.
Yeah.
Do you think you will get chimera seedlings from the Alps?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No,
Okay.
I don't think so. Chimera is something that I've asked Jeff Smith. Jeff Smith have been very supportive of me because I've been asking him a lot of questions. He himself told me that he doesn't understand how chimera are propagated. The genetics of chimera are a bit of an unknown. So this is another seedling. The purpose of this seedling is to get a nice field thumping trailer. But this one obviously is not quite a trailer. Alright? So what I did is I took it to the next phase. So I pollinated it with another trailer. So I'm hoping that this carry a bit of a trailer genes. So I carry pollinate with another trailer, and this trailer has bell flowers. So there's a seed pod there.
Can you show us the seed pod better there? Because that flower's just...
Yeah, you can see the seed pod.
Can we see it better?
Yep.
You can see it right in the middle of all that dead flower, everybody.
Yep. So I don't touch the petals or anything like that. Just leave it as it is. As long as it doesn't go moldy, you leave it. Don't touch it. So this was pollinated when? Let me just check the date. May, 9th of May. So on May, June, July. Oh, it's almost the ripening.
About 10 weeks.
Yeah. So I can see the bloom stalk starting to brown a little bit. So I'm going to leave it as it is. I'm hoping that you hold for at least a few more weeks. And then that seed pod will also start to turn brown. Okay. So this seedling is quite nice in the sense that it has very nice good. It's almost similar to yesterday I Spy, because this is actually yesterday I Spy with iron pavlina. I'm hoping to get a thumbprint frill. I was hoping to get the pink pages from pavlina, but that didn't come true. So I also pollinated the rainbow quiet riot. Well, I'll end up mostly getting a standard out of that cross. That will give me the fantasy. I think what fantasy rainbow quiet riot. I don't know whether it's a path. I can't remember, but it has a very nice fantasy. So again, this won't generate me a trailer. Is ribbon-based pearl. Ribbon-based pearl has pink path. So that if I can get a pink path on the blue with a thumbprint, I'm happy. So you can see there is there's another seed pod.
Another seed pod there, Patrick. Yes.
Yep. So
Yep.
there's another seed pod. That one is this is trying to get a trailer out of it. I use Sakit Big Tree Trail, which is a trailer, and a girl leaf. Now, girl leaves are dominant to boy leaves. This is boy leaves.
Oh dear.
So hopefully I'll get a girl leaf trailer, and Sakit Big Tree Trail has fantasy as well. So, but that's blue fantasy, so I'm not sure I will see on a blue flower. Alright. So I might lose the fantasy on that one. Alright. But again, we'll see. So that's the fun part about hybridizing. You have so many different possible
variables.
Yeah.
Yep.
So and you don't really know what it is until the end. Now my favorite seed parent as a trailer.
I think this is from one of the questions that was asked.
Yep. My favorite seed parent is Jay's I Spice. Okay. So I've been pollinating using Jay's I Spy. Frankie Kitty is using Jay's I Spy as a seed parent. The reason is my favorite is it has variegated leaf, but this one has turned a little bit because of temperature. It's white, so white is the most recessive of all colors.
Yep.
So it's like a white canvas. You can trying to paint any other color and pattern on it. So try not to use blue, because blue is the most dominant color. So it will literally override most other colors. So I normally use this. It's a very poor pollen parent, because you can see the
They're
pollen
tiny,
segment
aren't
is
they?
really tiny, and when you're trying to get pollen out, it's like, oh.
But as a seed plant, it excels.
Yes, it excels. So this one I pollinated with Jolly Marble. Jolly Marble has that coral color onto it, so I'm hoping to get some coral color trailers on a variegated plant again.
So that this one that you've got in your hand here was done on the 8th of June.
Yep.
Is there any indication of a seed pod coming up anywhere? Oh, there is too. Yes. Yep.
Again, trailer, the seed pod are so tiny. So it's very small compared to a standard. So be patient with that. So this is what it is, and the plant, as you can see, is a little bit ungroomed. Partly is because I try not to groom them. I've gone through so many screaming sessions for grooming seed pod off accidentally. All right. Now, one thing I haven't talked about is false seed pod.
False seed pods.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now,
What's that mean? I don't actually mean.
It's a seed pod that look like seed pod but doesn't give you any seed.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Green has the habit of doing that. Any flowers that has green tends to do that to you, and it's frustrating like anything. And they take a long time to ripe. And you think that, oh my God, I'm going to have some green pods, and then you waited for 5 months, finally they arrive, and you open it up, there's nothing inside. Wasps is another one that do that to you. This is one of my seedlings. This is done with propagate. This wasp is not very pretty, but it has a tinge, and you can see a lot of seed pod. I haven't even pollinated this. Can you see this? So you can even see big seed pod.
There it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
DS propagate is wasp plant. Wasp is a dominant trait. So you use that pollen on any plant, you are more likely to get lots of wasps.
This might be a good time to ask this question from Joelle Baker.
Yeah.
How do you find out which plant is the dominant plant?
There's a list of, as I said earlier on, there's a list of genetic traits. So you just need to, and it's through research, people contributing information, and that list is probably produced by Jeff Smith. I'll post that link to everyone. It's called the Ancestry Project.
So we can put that up on Down Under? Yeah. So we've got all access to that. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a public information. So it tells you which traits are dominant against another one. So you just have to work it out and experiment. As I explained, dominant doesn't mean that you get 100% of it. It depends on the ancestry of that plant. Okay? So you can get 100%, or you can get 75%, and 25% is possibly something else. And if you cross recessive to recessive, you definitely get 100% recessive. You cross dominant with recessive, then you get I think 75 or 50% dominant, 50% recessive.
Talking about dominant and recessive, Patrick, in my years of breeding dogs, all right,
Yeah.
I haven't done AVA yet.
Yeah.
We know that breeding recessive to recessive can often show the offspring to be very weak in their styling. Does that apply to African violets?
To a certain extent it does, but it depends on what. There is a style crossing called cross cell. So you actually crossing the plant with itself. that's not encouraged, because for that reason you bring out some of the recessive traits that you don't want. People do that mainly, and I do that myself, to understand the parentage. You cross the cell, it sometimes give you hint of what its parents are. So that's what you used to do that, and sometimes it shows you some interesting character as well.
Right.
I'll show you one plant that I did that by accident. Okay, the next stage is the seed pod, and I'm running out of time. I seem to be talking a lot.
Oh yeah. Well, it's 4:10.
Oh Jesus!
So the time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, maybe given that we already ran out of time, maybe I'll set out the next part of the session next time, which is the seed pod,
Yeah.
the planting or the growing of the seed. Sorry, the sowing of the seeds and the growing of the seedling.
Is this something that, do you think that you and I could, or you do, and I help you, of course, in the next couple of weeks?
Yeah,
Could we do that?
Yeah, we'll do that in the next session. I think. Sorry, I've run out of time. I didn't realize I'm talking too much here.
Is there anything else that you want to talk about, touching with pollination?
No, not at this stage. Does people have any other question that last minute question
Any final questions, anybody?
for this session?
We're not seeing anything come through. Mind you, there is a little bit of a time delay here. Thank you, Gaynor, for what you just said.
Yeah.
Look, I think we call it quits at that. On behalf of us all, Patrick, I just want to say thank you very, very much for your time and effort for all of us today. I certainly learnt a lot. I'm sure everybody else has learnt a lot. And may we continue doing this,
Yep.
and everybody learn, so that everybody can have a bit of a play with this.
Yep. I do encourage, you don't have to wait till the next session, start pollinating. Pick up some basic stuff and go from there.
Well, just try it.
So thank you everyone for your patience, really appreciate it. Start pollinating, and I definitely will organize the next session soon to finish off the other parts of hybridizing. Okay?
Right.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, everyone.